You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys coming on the show and doing all that good stuff. Welcome. As always, we have some of the most amazing people on the show. And I got to tell you, I don't know what you guys are doing out there in viral land or what's going on with the podcast, but every month or all month long in January, since about the 3rd, we've been hitting like record peaks. And it's just insane. I don't know if this is like a gym effect. We've never really seen this before after 15 years, but there's like a gym effect of people, I guess, who did New Year's resolutions that I'm going to listen to more podcasts and get inspired. But we're up over 245% as of this morning's numbers, and we're still hitting records every month. So thanks to all the new listeners out there who are joining the show and all that good stuff. We certainly appreciate you guys being there. And welcome. Do you know how hard it is to move a show that has millions of downloads to a 245% thing? It's just fucking crazy. So we're trying to just ride the lightning and enjoy you guys. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, if you listen to the show, you're going to get epiphanies and new ideas every show. So keep listening and doing what you're doing. But one thing we do want to ask the new listeners to do, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all the other places we are on the interwebs. You'll hear them. We plug every show up beginning and end, so you'll get sick of it after a while. But the rest of the show is awesome. As always, we have the CEOs, the billionaires, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the great authors, and people who've taken their life stories, their traumas, their dichotomies, their crucifixes they've been on, all the different things that they've learned in life, and they bring their stories to the show. And today we have another amazing woman on the show. Allison is on the show with us today. Let me get the pull up for her screen. Allison Chabot is on the show with us today, and she is a licensed, I can't speak this morning. She is a licensed therapist, international speaker, and mindset and transformation coach. And she'll be joining us on the show and talking about some of the things that she does to help people end shame and limiting beliefs and to find relentless self-love and empowerment. That's all I need, evidently, to get through life. That, and if I could learn to pronunciate stuff, that'd be great. She is a licensed therapist on a mission to help people break free from shame and limiting beliefs so they can find their way to relentless, radical love, self-love, and empowerment, and connect with their personal uniqueness and realign with their authentic divinity and greatest purpose. Welcome to the show, Allison. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you as well. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Yeah, my .com, www.anotefromyourtherapist.com.
A note from your therapist. Is that a good note or a bad note, or is that like a get me out of school note?
I think it, maybe depends on the day note.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what you do and how you do it in your words.
Yeah, what do I do? So I became, as you said, I'm a licensed therapist, and I specialize in anxiety, trauma, and sex and intimacy. So I see all sorts of people from all walks of life, but, my mission has really been in the last, several years to help people, particularly women, high-functioning women, people who are really successful, just kind of get out of their own damn way. And, I always kind of joke, like, I want people to hustle with passion rather than pressure. So, that's been kind of my jam for a while, is finding clients, talking on podcasts, and really hoping that someone can learn how to, just live their best damn life.
There you go. We're all trying to figure out how to live our best damn life.
Oh my God, amen to that.
That or some people are really good at living the worst ways of their life, but I think most of them are in prison. So there you go. I don't know why we're shaming people in prison today, but there we are. So give us a background story on you. How did you get in this business? How did you grow up? I think you have kind of an origin story that led you into the business you're in.
I sure do. So, I'm an 80s gal, 90s gal. And when I was in middle school, high school, honestly, even into college, I really struggled, and I had a bit of a breaking point in high school where I had a horrible anxiety attack, landed myself in the emergency room.
Oh, wow.
And the end of that story was them just saying, good luck, Godspeed, no medication. There was not a referral to a therapist. And over the course of my life, it kind of transmuted a bit. And I think instead of having something like an overt panic attack, you can't breathe, you can't concentrate, my anxiety kind of became more internal. And so I became a workaholic and, really just put the metal to the pedal and really got to a point where I burnt myself out. And I don't think that's a particularly interesting or unique story, but the aha moment that I had, I was in my mid 30s at this point, and I had a huge corporate job, great success. And I just looked at my life and thought, I can't do this another fucking day. And I quit everything and became a happy hour bartender, went back to school, and really started to focus on what the hell do I want in my life? And the one thing that I knew, I had always been marginally obsessed with like true crime, forensic psychology, that kind of thing. And in my college degree, I had worked at a hospital helping survivors of sexual assault. So I had a lot of background in trauma, in, what happens when someone survives something really serious. But I really wanted to learn a lot more on what happens on the other side. So speaking of prisons, I went back to jails, really. I went back to school and I got an internship in Rikers Island in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And I worked in solitary confinement in an all-male unit. And that was one of the first places I trained to become a therapist. So I got a pretty big fast pass. If you can be in solitary confinement at Rikers Island and find a way and a language to talk to people about mental health and to try to encourage them to the best of your ability to, learn some skills and how to live a better life, live a more aligned life. On the other side of that experience, it's a lot easier to talk to people who, are imprisoned and just have more mundane problems.
Yeah. Kind of puts things in perspective, huh? Definitely. So you've gone through that, and now you're licensed to help people and on empowerment and mindset. You've done some speaking as well, and then you specialize in anxiety, trauma, sex, and intimacy. I imagine a lot of trauma. We have a lot of trauma chat on the show over 16 years. A lot of great authors have been on the show, and people like yourself, and it's become. There's been so much of it that I'm no psychotherapist, but realizing how much childhood trauma just shapes the whole of one's life is extraordinary to me, especially if it's not reconciled through therapy, and seeing the damage and fallout of what that does, the choices people make and the choices people make in their mates, especially if it's sexual trauma, is just extraordinary. And unfortunately, or hopefully, a lot of people are able to eventually reconcile that. But the fallout that you have, the one thing is hindsight's always 20/20, and when you hit about 45, 50, you kind of have this weird thing where you can look back on your life. You seem to come into some sort of perceptual awareness where you can look back in your life and you can be like, there's a lot of wreckage on the way here, and there's kind of a pattern to it.
Yeah. And the pattern's important. I really deeply believe in growth. And as a trauma therapist, I don't believe that our trauma defines us. But if you just sit in a trauma, or even, it doesn't even have to be something as big as a trauma, just in your own problems, when you don't look at the patterns and take accountability, that's where your power lives, right? Your accountability, seeing how you're showing up to your life. What are you doing? What patterns are you repeating? What's getting you into trouble? What doesn't work? Yeah. So, I do think that, having worked at Rikers, I would often think to myself, what kind of a human would I be if I had grown up in these circumstances? Yeah. And I don't know. I'll never know that answer. With that said, I don't think it's as simple as that. I do think that pretty much everyone has the power to change, but the, sort of the need is a willingness to look at your own bullshit and just really try to get out of it.
Can I offer you a counterpoint theory? Because I run on theories that are constantly developing. But you mentioned that trauma doesn't define you. Would it be more accurate to say trauma trauma doesn't define you if you've done the work. Because I can sit with people in their lives, and I can tell you, after a while, I can be like, you were raised by a single mother, your father was in the home. I can break you down, and I can be like, you had sexual trauma. I can listen to someone saying, and then I can tell you how the whole rest of your life worked out. You went and made bad choices with men, so is that, do you think that's true of my theory? Or
I subscribe to that. There's an asterisk at the end of it, which is, you have to empower yourself to move through it. If everything stays the same, everything stays the same. Yeah. So, and we can easily repeat, someone who's been abused can become an abuser if you don't find ways to, have interventions and intercept that.
It will define their life. I mean, I'm not only a client, but I'm also a whatever that Harriman for Club line. But it will define your life. And if you don't get help and you don't get therapy, and I think people really need to go see a therapist like yourself, a licensed therapist, people, not one of these jackass coaches that are running around. There's lots of good coaches, but you need a licensed therapist.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to be investing in fucking crystals and shit. Stop it. That. Yeah.
Coaches can be great, but a coach, I do coaching work too. I have full disclosure, I have my own coach, but they're sort of like, hey, let's look at the problem, maybe a business problem, maybe a motivation problem, and help you move forward. But if you have never done the work and looking backwards, that's a really difficult.
Well, you're a coach doing it with a license.
That's true. That's true. I'll give you that.
So I'm going to stand up for you. I mean, you have a thing where you can be like, I am actually trained in this professionally. Yeah. And there's standards to the industry, my understanding of licensed therapy. There's ethics and morals. And, I mean, I see so many people just making shit up, I don't know, crystals and astrology and tarot reading cards and whatever sort of, numeric crap. I mean, you're just like, seriously, your life's already a fucking mess, and you're going to use this data to fix it. But yeah, I use it a lot. The analogy of do the work, and so I think people until they do the work, they're just going to keep being a shit show. They're going to keep repeating. They're going to keep dealing what they do. And a lot of the stuff, sexual trauma, my understanding is the majority, probably like 99% of people who are in therapy for drugs, alcohol addiction, I think it's like 99% or 98% of people who are in rehabs have sexual trauma. And what they're doing is they're using drugs and alcohol and other different ways to try and make it go away or tune it out. And a lot of them haven't dealt with the trauma, but it's a really big thing. It's a damage that you see going through life, and you'll see the choices they make with partners, the choices they make with family, the choices they make all through their lives will be shaped by it. Yeah. I don't know that statistic, but that wouldn't surprise me in the least. We really have two options, when we have endured something that is extremely difficult, which is to face it head on or to escape it. All right. And we are masters of finding ways to escape things, right? Who wants to necessarily choose sitting in discomfort when we can find a dopamine drip and drugs, alcohol, whatever your vice is. Unfortunately, that's the plan until the plan doesn't work anymore. That can only get you so far, right? And it's just, that's not where clarity comes from. That's not where growth comes from. And it's just basically not where happiness comes from, without all the buzzwords. It's just, if you don't deal with your BS, you're never going to feel good in your life. That's just the truth. Definitely. So you deal particularly with women, help them let go of guilt and shame, how to say goodbye to their anxiety and live a life that's led by passion. One thing I found with people that have trauma is they've never addressed it. So sometimes they're still hiding it for the guilt and the shame part. Maybe they don't want to address it because, like you said, sitting in it is painful, but that's the only way you can really flush it out. I remember Oprah on one show. It was the Leaving Neverland show, and Oprah did a show after with the two boys, and one of the guys got up who'd been molested by a local police officer, and he'd been an NFL player, and he talked about how he kept the poison of his secret Well, he kept a secret for all of his life, and it had become like a poison in him that had festered. It was just destroying him at every level. And it was until he bled the poison out and started talking to people about his issues, he was able to resolve it. And he basically got a comment, something to the effect of, you've got to get the poison out of you. And because it just kills you and eats you alive. So you talk about radical and relentless self-love and empowerment. What is the radical part about, or relentless part about in getting self-love?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. So there's a lot of messaging that comes out at us, right? Again, I get a little bit like, particularly for women, but men get this too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to work harder. We have to be, figure our lives out. We have to be a good mom, a good parent. And I think there is so much messaging that tells us that we're not good enough. You almost have to meet it with that like radical, like almost unconditional, I love myself no matter what, right? It doesn't matter if I screw up. It doesn't matter if I make mistakes. It doesn't mean if I have, I've made poor decisions in my life, even epically poor decisions in my life. Like I'm still worthy of love. I'm still a human being. And, not the rest of the world might not feel that way about you, but you have to feel that way about yourself, right? Because that's, if we don't adopt that kind of philosophy, we get into shame and we get into unbelievable regret. We get into anxiety. And I don't think that helps us move the pendulum to change, right? We want to own our stuff, right? I want to look at the mistakes I have and take ownership of it and really learn, but I don't have to hate myself because of it, because that self-loathing, it just doesn't get you anywhere.
There you go. Yeah, because you're just swimming in your, someone, whatever your part of your trauma is, it tells you that you're not worthy, or it tells you that, you're not good enough, and someone put their damage on you and screw those people.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
They don't know you. They usually don't know you anymore, whatever the trauma was. And it's your job to rise above it. There's a certain point where, you have to be self-accountable. Do you find that one of the big issues is becoming self-actualized and becoming self-accountable?
Yes.
I think for some people that have trauma, just acknowledging they had trauma is the hardest part, and being like, I was abused, I was traumatized, I was hurt. I think some people con themselves that, well, it was not big of a deal, but it really does have an effect. And sometimes being able to, it's like alcohol for AA, admitting you have a problem is the first step towards resolving it.
That's back to that poison. Like I'm noticing the poison's inside of me and I have to just own that it's there. Yeah. I can't do anything about it if I'm denying its existence. Right. Okay. Now that I'm like, all right, it's here. What do I do? So it's, kind of the 1-2 punch. It's like, all right, we got to acknowledge. And then you actually have to, in your words, I love it, do the work.
Do the work.
So, I always think like the analogy I use is it's not enough to commit to go to the gym, right? Like that's an idea. You might have to know that you need a lifestyle change, but if you don't show up, put on the gym clothes and get on the elliptical, nothing is going to actually change. The idea is a great starting point. The commitment is a great starting point. Awareness is a great starting point, but it's not enough. You have to continually show up.
There you go. And I'll do a ad here for the licensed therapy group for doing the work. Doing the work does not mean posting flowery memes on your Facebook every 5 minutes about how you're going to become a new person and a butterfly now. That's not the work. Go see a therapist. I see that all the time on Facebook, and you can tell like they're going through something like a breakup or whatever, and they're posting these affirmations that are these positive pump up and jerk off affirmations. I really think, and I mean, it's great to post one every now and then. Like, hey, here's a great saying by Stoicism. I do that, but when your whole feed is, I'm going to become a better person and all that good stuff, this is just crazy, man. Stop it. Go see a licensed therapist and do the damn work. And,
I was guilty of that. I will admit. I looked back at my beginning stages of my Instagram account and I was like, "Whoa, cringe," right? And it was very like, self-care isn't selfish. Here's a butterfly. And now what I have found is, I have a decent social media following. It's constantly improving, and I think the reason that that's true is because now I'm actually posting things that people connect to. I talk about how to let go of shame when you're having sex with your partner, right? How do you get naked and feel good about yourself? Are you having a shit body image day, right? Yeah. What does sexual exploration look like for you? Is your anxiety actually getting in your way? and that's on you. You have to do something about it. So I've taken a more real approach, and it's much more meaningful, and people connect to it way better.
Definitely. I mean, if you do have shame, I mean, I can see how that especially impacts women and how they view themselves, in society, et cetera, et cetera. You talk about don't let your brain bully you. What are some of the ways that we can help avoid doing that? My brain likes to do that too. It has a sort of attitude every now and then.
Mine too. So,
the ADHD is so great, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to beat this point. Talk to a licensed therapist because they can help your particular brand of what's bullying you. But the general answer is, I really love mindfulness. And when the way that I use mindfulness is not sort of the hippy dippy way that shows up on social media. Mindfulness to me is just knowing what's going on without judgment and learning how to slow your brain down. So, especially with high functioning people, especially successful people, their brain buzzes, doesn't shut off. And a lot of the time that's why we're successful. Yeah. If we have poor boundaries, we're going to be the first to show up to work. We're going to be the last ones to leave. We're going to answer our emails on our weekends, right? And you get a lot of reward for that. So it can be difficult to discern, how is my anxiety, my rumination, my constant brain buzz helping me and motivating me, and when is it getting in my way? And if you're laying in bed at night and you can't sleep and you're constantly thinking, that is not a good use of your energy. That is a good signal that your brain needs a break. It just needs a break. You need to get out of your own way. And those are skills, right? And they're unique skills. So mindfulness, we often think of as like meditation. That's a great application of it. I don't meditate. I'm a licensed therapist that does not meditate. That's okay for me. I find other things. You can play video games. You can cook dinner. You can go walk your damn dog. It doesn't matter. It's just training your brain to kind of get that break and notice what you're actually thinking, right? Our thoughts, the more we think something, the more easy that thought is to come up. If I think I'm amazing, that thought is going to lead me to pick good partners. It's going to lead me to good jobs. If I start to think I'm a fucking failure, it leads me to, make poor choices. And what we don't realize is once we repeat that thought, it doubles, it triples, it quadruples. And now we've thought that thought 100,000 times. And it's just like running like the baseline of our brain. You don't have to actively notice it.
Yeah, I think it's part of the reticular activating system. I'm not sure, but that part of the brain can really whip you, and especially if you're in depression or high ADHD mode. ADHD is great. They call it the CEO's disease, and you're right. A lot of people that are highly successful have ADHD to the extreme, but hopefully you can learn to either medicate it through proper medication. Don't do like I did for vodka for 20 years. But that, or you can just learn to ride the wave and control the brain and shut down when you get that weird stuff. Eckhart Tolle kind of helped me deal with some of that in being present. So in focusing and trying to be present and shutting down that mind, because you're like, hey, asshole, I can't fix all that shit in the past. I can't fix the stuff in the future that you're freaking out about. All I can do is what's here right now in front of me in this moment. And this is the only control period I have. So you can beat me up about, I don't know, I hurt someone's feelings 10 years ago or whatever, whatever. I can't deal with that. There's no reason to have this conversation. Sometimes I just tell my brain to shut up and leave me alone. And
honestly, that's actually, you're interrupting a thought, right? If you're just like, stop. When I teach children, that's what we teach. We're like, just say, hey, stop. As grown-ups, we can get more colorful language. Yeah. But, that is all good tactics. The other thing I like to advise is I love what's called somatic psychology. And all that really is acknowledging that there's a mind-body connection. So we have a lot of intel to ourselves. If I'm thinking something and I like drop into my body and my shoulders are forward, I'm grinding my teeth, I have a headache, sweating, that's a good indicator to me that the thought that I'm having is not being particularly helpful, right? If my heart is racing. If I think, all right, this is difficult, but I can do it, that probably isn't a particularly triggering thought. You're going to feel like your shoulders are going to relax. Maybe you even feel motivated. So learning how to kind of listen to your own intuition, like you have the answers, you are the answer. So is this not helpful or is it hurtful? Right?
Oh yeah.
You just have to kind of like tune into that radar, which none of us really know how to do well because we don't get taught that kind of thing in school. Yeah. Listen to your inner voice is not like a very powerful thought that we have, right? So it's like when we just develop anxiety and we don't even know it's anxiety. It's just making us feel like trash.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the only thing they're teaching is algebra and other crap that, unless you're a scientist, you'll never use. And then you have anxiety about that. So congratulations. Good job, school. They need to teach more life skills. I love teachers, and they do such a great job at changing the world. But, we need to teach more life skills instead of, I don't know, like how to use credit, how to balance a budget, how to balance your checking account, how to not get a whole lot of credit. Maybe you should pick a good job if you're going to take out a loan for college. The life skills. Teach people fucking parenting.
Yes.
Parenting skills. Or, I don't even think they teach stuff like they used to teach nowadays. Back in my day, they would teach the girls, like, they would have to take care of an egg. And it was kind of silly to think about, but when you kind of thought about it, you're like, this kind of makes sense. I mean, you learn to you have to start learning to think outside yourself and for another sort of being or imaginary being. But and I know I talked to the gals, and they'd be like, trying to do the thing, and it gave them perspective, and you think about something that you probably wouldn't think about when you're in your teens. But I don't even think they do that now.
They do. I had the same thing. We had a doll, but instead of an egg, I think our school was fancy, but
they had a doll. They actually gave you a doll.
We had a doll. And it cried.
I think the problem with the egg, the trick with the egg was if you broke the fucking egg, then you were banned from being a mother ever or something. I don't know. Some
serious consequences.
Just like you were a sign that it just was never going to work out for you. But no, I'm sure it did. It's just an egg, for Christ's sake, people.
Yeah.
But that's what. I don't know. I'm not going to do that baby joke. So I'll just let you guys make up one in your head. That's probably worse. So what is the secret to ending shame and finding empowerment? How do we get empowered? Is it through self-actualization or self-accountability, or?
I would say all of the above, and it really just, like, can't stress this point enough. The empowerment lies in us, right? So I have this cheesy sentence that I say to myself quite often, which is, my response is my responsibility, right? I'm allowed to be pissed. My partner's going to screw up. I'm allowed to have bad days. I'm allowed to make mistakes, but how I show up to that is on me, right? So, like, I used to do couples counseling. I don't anymore. It's super hard and I hate it. But when I did it, someone would be like, okay, but I wouldn't have behaved that way if you didn't XYZ. And I get that thought, but it leaves you stuck. Right. Yeah. So it's okay. I'm allowed to be angry, but I was not allowed to whatever you did. I'm not allowed to punch a wall. Yeah. So, that's where the empowerment lives, is really taking your own life and taking responsibility for it, for your choices. I even hear people that are like, I'm stuck in a marriage. It's like, no one really gets stuck in things. That doesn't mean that choices aren't extremely difficult or there aren't going to be challenges or considerations, right? It's pretty privileged to just get to leave your husband or your wife, but you do have the power to change your life. And I always pitch my big three, which is flexibility, creativity, and patience. And if you can kind of get adaptable, what kind of support do I need? Where can I lean in for that support? What do I need? Life changes. Right? It just does.
Definitely.
Like, oh shit, okay, I'm in control, right? I didn't happen upon this life by chance. I made strategic choices along the way that put me here. And I could theoretically make strategic choices to get me out. Right. Yeah. And that to me is like, that's liberation, that's freedom, that's empowerment. Right.
Definitely. It's interesting because I've heard that line before. You're stuck in a marriage, or I'm stuck in a marriage. And when you listen to it, the victimhood nature of it. I'm stuck in a marriage. This is happening to me. I didn't cause any of this to happen. I didn't contribute in any way. I'm just trapped in a marriage. And really, you should separate it by probably commas or something. I'm not an English professor, but you're stuck in a marriage. It's your fault. And or put the comma behind stuck. You're stuck. You're the one who's stuck in a marriage. And, it's interesting to me. I see this a lot. A good example is the lack of self-accountability. Yesterday, I'd posted a joke meme in one of our dating groups where a guy's in a car with a woman and he goes, hey, check out that dog there on the corner. And the guy goes, I don't like dogs. And then it shows in the next slate, it's a comedy bit. The next slate, the dog's in the seat where the woman was, and the woman's on the side of the road being left behind. And, it's a joke thing. Those of us who have dogs, we're just, if you meet somebody who's like, I don't like dogs, you're like, oh, that's cool. Have a nice life. And some woman wrote this thing that was just, I was just like, just right out of left field. She wrote, I never date anyone with dogs. My ex had dogs and he loved the dogs better than his children. So I would never date you or anybody else. And it was like, wow, thanks, Karen. Thanks for showing up there. Thanks for contributing your bit. Like, thanks for shoving your poor choices on everybody. Yeah. But, I looked at it and I'm like, so, most dog owner people are good people. I'm not saying people who don't own dogs are not good people, but we're better than you. 100%. And because we have a soul. No, I'm just kidding. Cat people are just fine. But it was funny to me because I'm like, you don't have any self-accountability in your language. You chose that person.
Yes.
And so you are a bad picker.
Yeah.
Like, you're part of the problem. Yes. I don't know what it is. When I grew up, married people always say, hey, 50-50, it takes 50-50 to make a relationship where it takes two people to tango. So, it's a 50-50 thing, and I would hear people get divorced and say that. But now it's just like, you would think that people were Jesus Christ in their relationships and the other person was, I don't know, Satan.
Yeah.
And you're like, did you do anything wrong in that relationship? No, it was all them. Exactly. You meet people now that are like, all my last 15 exes were narcissists. And you're like, wow, considering that actual narcissists represent maybe 3 to 5% of the population.
Yeah.
What did you just go down to the narcissist shop every time you need a new relationship? Like, how did you hit all the buttons at once and score the lottery there, man?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you should play the lottery. But and it all comes down to that language that's self-defeating and lack of self-accountability, I think.
Yeah. Play that tape forward with the woman with the dog. It's like, okay, if she's taking no ownership in the choices that she's making, what's the next relationship going to look like? All right, maybe he doesn't have a dog, but like insert different problem under a different brand. Right?
Yeah. So I remember I had one friend. Yeah, go ahead with your thought.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
I remember I had one friend. He married a woman, and he was literally her 5th marriage. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I wish I'd met him before he'd done it. I'm like, what? Because I would have been like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And he married a woman. He was her 5th marriage, and she had definitely some childhood trauma. She hadn't worked out. So, but in every relationship, she had browbeaten the man with jealousy over, you're going to cheat on me, until they finally drove them to cheat. Yeah. And I mean, he couldn't look at another woman. He couldn't glance at another woman, and men do. We have that natural tendency. It's in our biology.
That's okay.
So look, but most of us don't do anything about it, but we look. Yeah. And so, I mean, he would deal with this woman going through these trauma issues, and no matter what he did, he couldn't make her feel secure and feminine. But every relationship, all 5 marriages, she driven the guy to the end of his thing. And I've actually been in one relationship with that where you're accused of cheating so much, you finally just go, I should just go fucking cheat.
Yeah.
Because I'm guilty of it already. It just to get away from this person. And but that self-fulfilling pattern was just extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what we call it in psychology, a self-fulfilling prophecy. The thing I'm worried about absolutely the most in the world will be the thing that actualizes, because I put so much damn energy into this.
Yeah. And it was, you would see how destructive it was in people's lives and stuff. What are some other things you want to tease out to people to get them on board with you? Let's talk about some of the service you do. You have a newsletter that you do. You have the coaching, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I offer, a big part of my whole spiel here is, I have a private one-to-one way to work with me, and that is the best, right? Straight up, I get to work with you. I get to look at your particular branch of problems, and we problem solve, and we hope that you lead an unstoppable damn life. So, you can find out more about that in my coaching program. It's called Becoming Unstoppable. But then I also offer, to make it more accessible, I do believe that when you do better in your life, I do better in my life, everybody does damn better in their lives, right?
Mhm.
Fully functioning people make a better society. So I offer a newsletter, and I, really try to talk about mental health, wellness. I kind of joke that it's like story time meets tools, right? Like I actually want to share some of the things that I've learned, not just have an inspirational post. And that's on my website, anotefromyourtherapist.com. It's called The Inner Circle. And I'm starting a podcast myself. And it'll actually,
there you go.
We relaunch in 2 weeks, February 14th, Valentine's Day.
Oh, there you go. You're going to launch on Valentine. That's a good trauma day.
Right?
People are usually getting trauma from what they didn't get on their dates or being ghosted, or they're sitting around going, why am I unlovable?
Yeah.
And it's because you haven't done the work.
Because you haven't done the work, but I will help you. I will help you do the work.
I think this might be a shirt or a coffee mug. Why am I unlovable? Because you haven't done the work.
Yep.
Do the work, damn it. I'm like that guy on TikTok who always shames people to go to the gym. Are you looking at me right now? Why are you not at the gym? Look at your flabby abs. I forget what that guy's called. So there you go. Maybe we should just call that the podcast. Do you have a title for the podcast so people can reference it?
Yes, it's called Becoming Unstoppable.
Becoming Unstoppable.
I know. It was not my favorite of name, to be fully honest, but the people seem to like it. So we
there you go. There you go. Well, you got to go with what they like. They still hate the Chris Voss Show name. Who the hell's Chris Voss? I'm like, I don't know, some idiot with a mic. But it's worked for 15 years or something like that. People come on and go, hey, this guy has really amazing guests on the show. He's an idiot, but the guests are amazing. And you learn so much. So people can reach out to you by your email, go to your website, all that good stuff. And please, people, do the work. Talk to a licensed therapist. Don't do crystals. Stop it. Stop doing that. And memes on Facebook don't work. Stop it. Stop it. If you want to do a meme every now and then, do it. But we can all see your freaking bleed out trauma. Like I see some people and I just want to reach out to them. I'm like, are you fucking okay? Because you're not. Maybe I should just start handing out cards and get some affiliate money from referrals to licensed professionals. Maybe that's what I need to do. That way I'd at least feel like I should reach out from a monetary aspect and I can make a buck or two in case they yell at me. Because usually they don't take it very well if you're like, hey man, why are you a psycho?
Yeah, that doesn't even, I can
that's
see
pretty much, it's most of the DMs I get personally. People write me and like, why are you a psycho?
Yeah.
So there you go. So thank you very much, Allison, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Give us your .com one more time.
Yeah, anotefromyourtherapist.com, and it's the same on social media at A Note From Your Therapist.
There you go. So thank you for coming by the show. Thanks for enlightening us. And good stuff. Great luck with your new podcast. People should check that out as well. You can kind of learn about doing the work. It kind of start down the path. But there's, here's another PSA I'll give. There's no shame in getting therapy.
Oh, thank you.
There really is not. You don't have to tell anybody if you don't want to.
You don't.
But there's no shame in it. There's no shame in saying, I think something's wrong and not working. And if you've lived long enough where, you're starting to see a pattern, go get therapy. Like I have people, one of my favorite things people will do on like Facebook or social media is be like, if you go back and talk to your 16 or 18-year-old self, what would you tell yourself? And people are always surprised at my answer. I'd be like, go into freaking therapy.
Oh, love it.
I had bad ADHD back then. I was checking the door like 20 times a night to make sure it was locked, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think my brother was washing his hands to the point they would bleed. We both had ADHD and we really needed some therapy. He still does, but that's another story. Anyway, thank you very much, Allison, for coming on the show. And I think we've made an advertisement for licensed therapy now. And I'm going to get hate mail from all the crystal coaches. And that's fine because I'm just going to refer them to you. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Subscribe to the big LinkedIn newsletter. I think grows like a weed. I didn't know there are many active agents on LinkedIn. Go to 130,000 group over on LinkedIn as well. Chris Voss one on the TikTokity and Chris Voss Facebook.com. You can see the 5 or 6 groups we have over there. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.